Hey everyone. Welcome to Rockhound Talk Live, the only live podcast on Facebook and YouTube. Welcome. How are you doing, Ben?
I'm doing pretty good. Just got back from a rockhounding trip to Montana, so that was a ton of fun.
Yes. I seen your post. Looked like a lot of fun. It was hot and fun.
Yeah. We lucked out. Last year it was over 100 degrees, and this year it was 100 degrees, and it was very, very hot. It was so hot that I would bend down to pick up agates that were full of moss and darker color, and they were sitting in the sun, and I would be burning my hand. They were so hot. It was
ouch.
It was hot, but it was really good. I found a lot of agates, found some dinosaur bones, and some other bones, which we'll see a picture of later tonight. So it was a lot of fun. How have you been?
I've been doing well. I haven't done any collecting the last few weeks. I've just been working and got the kids back in school, so we're back into routine, that kind of thing. I've got a high schooler now, so lots of exciting things going on
Oh.
there at home. Yeah, and I'm hoping to get back to New York at the end of the month, though.
Oh,
And
really?
maybe, yeah, I just addicted to it. I just love it so much. And then I'm trying to fit in Haunted Ridge before it gets cold, but I don't know if it'll be possible, but it's my hope. I would really like to do it in October. If anybody's been to Haunted Ridge in October, they do, because of the, Haunted Ridge and it being October with Halloween, they do like weekends there or something. So something's eventful. So I'm hoping to experience that if I can squeeze it in. We've got lots of activities back to school, so we'll see how that goes. Um, I'm hoping though, like if I can't do it in October, being that it's lower than Ohio, I'm thinking I could probably do it comfortably in November, collect and not be, too cold. I'll have to look into the weather, but maybe. So it may not be completely, lost hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. So any news, any geology news that you're aware of?
I'm trying to think. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I will say too, we mentioned this on the last show. One of our guests from this season, Chase Anderson, also known as the Agate Dude, set up a charity and he's doing his benefit for Lahaina, Hawaii, for all the wildfires. That is actually this Sunday. So if you are in the Twin Cities area, come down to Excelsior Brewing Company on Sunday. There's going to be auctions. I know when we did our last interview with Dustin Twist, he mentioned he was going to donate some things. So we've got a bunch of stuff there. So if anyone is in the Twin Cities, Minnesota area, come stop by the western suburbs and help support the wildlife relief for Hawaii, for Maui.
Yes, that would such a great cause. I hope it does really well.
Yes. Yeah. Do you?
So, what's that?
Oh, I was just going to say, so you have any plans then now that it's starting to become fall? Do you have like tumbling or anything that you're going to start doing?
So actually, I started my first tumble this summer from like 2 years, and I wasn't too terribly disappointed in that turnout.
Okay.
I've had worse turnouts, so for my first time in 2 years, I was satisfied with the result. Of course, I know I can get them better, and so I started a next batch, and so I have like tons of like 5 gallon buckets of fluorescent acetylite from Arkansas that are about that size, all like quarry cut. And
Okay.
I thought, gosh, they're so pretty when they're fluorescent. I'd like to see them polished. So I threw those babies in and I let them sit in stage one for like 2 weeks. I took them out and they were rough cut. I took
Okay.
them out and I'm like, oh my gosh, they are gorgeous. And just stage one.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to see the results of those. I would love to I mean, if those turn out really great, I might just keep cycling them, throughout the winter. But then, I'll have to bring those in because I do those in my garage because then everything will freeze over and when it gets
Right.
cold. So I've got a few more months. I can still play with those outside a bit, but so yeah, I'll definitely be doing some tumbling, probably more than I anticipated now that I've seen these results. I took a lot
Hmm.
of tips from Kelsey when we had her on. I was like channeling, her tumbling goddess in in my work, my next batch here. So I'm thinking they'll turn out pretty good.
Great. I do want to say I did forget to mention this. So this weekend, as I talked about, I was in Montana. It was a trip with the Minnesota Mineral Club, and I have to give a shout out to one of our viewers, Sarah, who is a mom, and she actually doesn't watch our live episodes. Obviously, being a mom, she's really busy, but she catches the replays and found us by trying to see if there was a rock hounding podcast.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
learned about the Minnesota Mineral Club from the podcast and joined our trip because of that. And she had a great time, found a bunch of agates. So I just got to give a shout out to Sarah, who made the trip from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, out to Montana.
That's great. Love the connection that was created there. That's awesome. So we have an exciting show tonight. Our guest, Bethany Burke, aka BK Bones. She is a paleontologist from Texas. Excited to have her on. I've been corresponding with Bethany, since February, for quite a while. And so it's been a long time in the making to have her on tonight. And our exciting part of the show is Bethany wanted to ID some specimens from our viewers. And so we had viewers submit specimens that they'd like identified that they didn't know what they were. And Bethany has reviewed those and she will be sharing those IDs tonight. So that will be really cool to just kind of see, often, when we post on Facebook groups, we're like, what is this? What is that? And, we don't really get always the opportunity to hear a professional, review, specimens via a picture and, tell us what they think it is. So that'll be really cool to have that done for these viewers and just to see kind of some of the thought process that she had when she was IDing them. So I'm excited for that portion of the show.
Yeah.
Anything you wanted to add before we get her on? I'm so excited.
No, and she's got some great TikToks too.
Oh,
So you can
yes.
follow her, BK Bones if you aren't already. And yeah, stick around for identification later. And then also just a reminder to everyone that's watching, if you've got questions that you think of during the show, please post them in the comments so we can ask those as well.
Yes.
But
yes.
Yeah, so let's bring on Bethany.
Yes. Hi.
There we go.
Hey, Bethany. Welcome to Rockhound Talk Live. We're happy to have you.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. It's been a long time in the making.
Yes, it has. So tell us, how are you today? How is the weather down there? Is it beaming hot?
Yeah, being in Texas, it's been at least 100 for 2-ish months now.
Wow, like consecutively. Wow.
Yeah, there's been a lot of fires and all of that, but today we hit like a nice 96 for like an hour and it was fantastic. So I have been inside.
You've been chilling out today. You guys got below 100.
Yeah, nice and good.
So Bethany, we would love to know a bit about your journey. Could you share with us just, from the earliest ages of, when you started to realize that you love dinosaurs and fossils and just kind of take us through your journey and your story.
Yeah, sure. Like I'm repping one of my many dinosaur dresses that I have. I got so many at this point, but going back, some of my first memories actually are of dinosaur type things. And I've wanted to be a paleontologist since I was 3 years old when I learned about Mary Anning from a little like children's book. And for, viewers who might not be familiar with Mary Anning, she's considered to be the first female paleontologist and one of the first actual paleontologists because, geology has this long storied, path that has been a pretty established science for a long time. The actual profession of paleontology, not just the collection of fossils, which of course goes back to the beginning of, human history. We find in, archaeological kind of like situations and caves and stuff like that, pretty necklaces and things like that made out of ammonite fossils, but paleontology in and of itself only started in the 1800s. So Mary Anning lived in Lyme Regis in England, and she is actually the inspiration behind She Sells Seashells down by the seashore. Is actually Mary Anning in the front of her house on the beach, she was selling fossilized ammonites because
Wow.
Lyme Regis is on the Jurassic Coast, which is one of the absolute best places in the entire world to go hounding for ammonites. So I learned about her, and I was just like, yes, that
Yeah.
should be me. And so I've always loved fossils, and being in a place, Texas, millions of years ago was under what is called the Western Interior Seaway. So almost all of Texas, the entire middle of it at least, was underwater. So even in just huge cities like Dallas, you will find fantastic fossils. There's some parks in Dallas and in Austin that have remained untouched because they have theropod prints. So some of our,
Oh, wow.
carnivorous dinosaur prints. So all over Texas, I feel like a lot of people have their dinosaur phase, and sometimes it doesn't go away. Being in a place growing up in Texas, it wasn't really an option to get away from fossils. It's always in the news. It makes national and global news. There was just a bunch more dinosaur prints discovered up in Glen Rose, Texas, because of the drought. It's the only good thing that's come of the drought. But yeah, I decided that I wanted to be a paleontologist, and I actually went to college for a degree in research. My undergraduate degree is in analytical and theoretical rhetorical communications. It's a very long way to say research. It's a very long way to say that. And I'm actually going to be pursuing my master's in preparation and museum studies. So that's going to be pretty neat. For paleontology journey in general, right now I act as the primary researcher, the primary investigator for the marine reptiles site at Texas Through Time in Hillsborough, Texas. And last summer, I've actually, as of yesterday, been home for an entire year. I was one of the interns at the Montana Dinosaur Center, which in Bynum, Montana, houses the first baby dinosaur skeleton that was ever discovered. So going all over, just doing it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I was reading about, your education and all the things that you've done. And I'm like, wow, you really have been all over doing it all. Like, you go, girl.
So that kind of comes to what I was going to ask you. So you sent some photos. So I was going to pull those photos up here.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about these two photos?
Yeah. So in the blue right there on the left for me, I don't know what it is for the viewers, but that is a fun picture from Montana, standing outside of the Montana Dinosaur Center. And all over my leg for my, geology peeps is a bunch of wet bentonite clay. I fell in a hole all the way up right there to above, my middle thigh. That it's one of my favorite pictures of me. Oddly enough, I have these beautiful engagement photos that, my fiance and I took. And this is the photo that I have hanging in my office of me. But I just felt I was like, wow, this is the field. This is what people need to see.
Yeah.
You're going to fall in holes.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And then there on the right is actually at the marine reptile site. That is a plesiosaur that we're uncovering. And I'm teaching a close kiddo just about what we were seeing there, kind of erupting from the ground. And sadly, they have, eroded in the middle, but there's some nice spine, these nice vertebrae of a plesiosaur right there. And it was very hot then as well.
Nice.
On top of that plesiosaur,
Okay.
it's but in a very focused way. I wasn't stepping on anything.
How big is that? Is that the whole area that you can see that what you're standing on?
Yes. An interesting thing that not many people know even paleontologists that don't directly work with marine reptiles is with theropod dinosaurs. So, immediately thinking of T-Rex or Albertosaurus, things like that. There is something called the death pose, which is that famous thing that everyone sees. They throw their head back and, their arms are up. For our marine reptiles, especially plesiosaurs, they kind of fold. So they'll kind of like curl into themselves. And right now, part of my job is calculating how much spinal material do we have, what can I reference, and then mathing what it's going to be straightened out. That creature is very large. It's probably, we have at least already 6 feet of stuff there, but that's only a percentage of the animal. And it's looking like this could be a new species of animal. So I'm kind of, this is my first paper that I'm lead on, and I've been thrown a little bit in the deep end for that. And then below that, so on top there, I'm standing on, the plesiosaur, and on bottom is actually my first paleontology dig. And I wanted to include that because that was me in Field Paleo 101 in that class. And what's fun is that material right there, if I remember correctly, was sauropod material. I believe that is also some, spine, some vertebrae. And
was that in Texas?
That one was in Colorado.
Okay.
And so it was very hard rock, Jurassic. And we were working in what's known as like a WSA, wildlife study area. And it was on BLM land, so Bureau of Land Management, which means that we weren't allowed to use any machines or anything mechanical. It was all done by hand. And it also meant that we as students were the sled dogs to move that 650-pound jacket. They made that sled and they tied us. I think there was 5 of us by the end of it. They tied it to us, and all of our TAs and our professor were like, go, go, go. And it was about a little over 1/4 of a mile.
Wow.
Yes. The next photo right there I wanted to include, again in Montana, and I'm holding the dental battery of an adolescent hadrosaur right there. Probably, maybe Maiasaura, not sure. That site still needs some dating done. There is an ash layer, so they'll be figuring that out in the future. But yes, it was a juvenile, just a little kid hadrosaur.
I'm not sure if these are all from the same location.
The green, that is Colorado again. That is a rib of something indeterminate. And then the next photo I wanted to include, because one of my big things as a paleontologist is I love doing prep. I love prepping out, the bones. Basically, I put puzzles together, and the puzzles happen to be animals. And that right there was a bit of a tragic situation. We use a lot of, in rockhounding and paleontology, a lot of chemicals, a lot of, assistance needs, to be put into excavating and treating these materials. Some glue had not dried. Glue does whatever it wants. Sometimes it's too cold and it doesn't want to dry. Sometimes it's too hot and it also doesn't want to dry. So one of the other students actually had put the foil to protect the fossil over it without the glue drying. So all of the foil stuck to that element. And how I figured out I wanted to do detail prep is I spent about, 2 hours getting all of the foil off of that piece. I believe it was the head of a humerus, and just a little dental pick, get it out as much as I could in the field. But that, I was already pursuing paleontology, but that was what started the preparator side of, my job. It's right there. And then the next one, I like showing this very silly picture. This was actually taken about an hour before I got a concussion.
Oh,
Oh,
what?
wow. My
From
goodness.
did you fall, or was there a falling rock? How did you get a concussion?
Somebody dropped a shovel on my head.
Oh, no.
Heat exhaustion is a thing, guys. And when
Yes,
you're
it
out,
really is.
when you're out hounding, you really need to take care of yourself. I always say hydrate or dihydrate. And it was just it was a situation that was kind of like unavoidable. It was the end of the day, even, so it slipped from the ledge and then I was under. It hit me in the head. But I like showing this picture because I feel like this is a very telling picture of the realities of paleontology. I have not showered in about 7 days in this picture because we were 7 hours away from civilization. The closest town was actually a Hutterite colony, and the Hutterites are very similar to the Amish. So not like that would have been helpful. I like using tools that someone could get every day. Paleontologists, we like taking tools made for other professions and using them for ourselves. One of the biggest things, dental picks, but also brushes are very expensive. Like archaeological and paleontology brushes can be very expensive if that's what they're made for. Because some people, more so in like the older generation, really care about, this is a hog hair brush and that's going to get the most into this type of sediment. I don't really care. I had a thought back in probably 2021 and I was like, makeup is fancy dirt that you move around on your face. So why can't I buy cheap makeup brushes and use them in the field? And that's what I did. That yellow one actually has SpongeBob SquarePants on it. So I like to show that paleo is more accessible than people tend to think.
That's cool.
And then there's my good friend Lacey. She is a paleo student. I think she will be dropping by to watch. If you're already here, Lacey, hello, I love you. We're there with a bunch of sauropod elements, some verts and indeterminate chunks. And then there is a nice little part of a dental battery, some teeth, again, from a hadrosaur. I have an uncanny ability to find teeth. They're one of the only things I don't care about.
Really?
Dinosaurs. I say that they are always fascinating. They are always fascinating. But one thing that I like to get out there, I see so many specimens like up for sale for like dinosaur teeth. And that is, can be totally fine because they aren't super important in the way that Maiasaura, which was one of our duckbill, our hadrosaur dinosaurs, had 300 teeth. And it lost them every 42 days. So there is teeth. Teeth are actually the most common vertebrate fossil that you find.
Okay.
That tooth that I'm holding right there, those little two, that was the day that I had my record number of teeth. I found 23 tooth elements in one day.
Wow.
And probably a 5-hour, period. So teeth are the most common. And I'm really good at I don't know why.
So speaking of teeth, I'm guessing are they some kind of carnivore?
I care about this one.
Okay.
It's all the same tooth. It's all the same tooth. And this is a theropod. So one of our meat eater tooth. This is from Montana and is probably from a Gorgosaurus, which is pretty similar to T-Rex. It's big, it's scary, all of that. It did have more functional arms and it filled the same kind of ecological niche of T-Rex for its time and location.
So would that be older than the T-Rex? Or this would have to be older if it's not Cretaceous.
Yes. So it's the time periods are pretty comparable to the rock and the age layers. There is overlap with theropods. What we can think of it is, so in Montana and everywhere, but just for this specific tooth, you have something that's kind of interesting that we don't see many times anymore in our modern animals, that there can be multiple apex predators in the same kind of environment. So
Okay.
even though there was the same time period, like there was some overlap with, these two animals, it was like if you had a mountain lion over here and then just, drive an hour and a half, and instead of mountain lions, you suddenly have a bunch of wolves. They are both apex predators. They both do the same things. They lived at the same time in similar areas, but they didn't overlap in their like localities, but they did the same thing at the same time. So
Right.
T-Rex and Gorgosaurus are often compared. T-Rex is most often compared to things like Albertosaurus. So there's that. This was also pretty close to Canada. We could see Canada from where this was dug up. We got to wave at Canada. It was great. It's like, hello. This tooth actually is very special to me. I did not get to keep it. It's a museum specimen, so it was taken back for research for the Dinosaur Center's collection. But it actually, and it's not going to show up on camera, that tooth gave me a pretty gnarly scar on this hand.
Oh, wow.
Theropod teeth have serrations on them, just like knives.
Oh.
So I think it's pretty cool. It healed a lot better than I wanted it to. I wanted to have like a really gnarly scar for the rest of my life on it, but you can barely tell now.
Yeah, I should bring up, if we've got time at the end, on our Mineral Club trip, someone found a juvenile T-Rex jaw that has teeth still attached to it, and I got some close-up views where you can see the serrations on the teeth. So I'll have to find that. Maybe we can throw it in at the end if we have some time.
That's so cool. Yeah. That'd be neat. So yeah, that tooth is my favorite tooth.
That's great. So you mentioned, so you've been like Texas, Colorado, Montana. Have you dug then in other states?
Yes. So how it's kind of set up is I have traveled lots of places to go like fossil hunting and prospecting. I've gone all the way to England, and I've gone to Florida as well. I did some in Canada. Canada was kind of a precarious type situation because even with rockhounding, but especially with vertebrate fossils, Canada has incredibly strict laws. You can collect anything on the surface in Canada as far as fossils, which pretty standard. It's the same, kind of most states here, but you have to be with a museum or a university to dig for dinosaurs, even if it is your own land. So it's very protected. They have the longest standing and the strictest fossil kind of protections and laws in place. So I did get to go there as a professional and visit some friends that worked at museums, but I did not get to dig there. I kind of count it, as working there, but as someone who is not a Canadian national, next time I go there, I am working with a museum, and I will be able to like put my hands under the dirt, not just pick stuff up.
Okay.
But yeah, my dig sites have been in Texas, Montana, and Colorado, multiple locations in each. But I've been all over. It's been great.
So do you have like a bucket list of somewhere that you like would love to dig?
Yes. I can't wait for Canada. That's going to be great. I very much want to go to Australia. I have a lot of friends and colleagues in Australia. The only thing really holding me back from there is I am very arachnophobic, and they have a spider season, which is words that should not be put together. It rains spiders there, and That's not okay.
So what would you be looking for then in Australia? I guess I don't know what dinosaurs would be there or fossils.
They have some great sauropods, so our long-necked dinosaurs. They got a lot of that going over there. They have so many creatures. What's cool about Australia is I don't work very much with mammals. I would say that I barely work with mammals. I'm a little bit known as the marine paleontologist that hates camels, and I'm starting to accept that. I really don't like camels, but they have so many marsupials, fossilized in Australia, and I think that is very neat, very cool. So I'd love to go to Australia. A bucket list would be somewhere in Mongolia, but that's really hard to do because, again, legality things. It would have to be like for a PhD project through some huge, multinational effort to go to Mongolia.
Right. So one thing I've been thinking about with some of these where you seem to just sort of know these fossils, if someone was looking to get more information either to start paleontology or they just have a bunch of fossils and they want to get like some information, possible identification, where should they start looking or asking?
Go to Fossil Forum. Fossil Forum is an amazing resource that I've used myself frequently when it comes to a lot of mammal stuff. Again, vertebrate animals share the same bones. We have the same bones. They might look a little different, like seals have, humeri that are way flatter and kind of curvier than ours, but they're humorous. I could not tell you one mammal from another one, like one camel from a different camel. I have no idea. So I put that on Fossil Forum, and there's a lot of, just hobbyists, but also a group of very active retired paleontologists on Fossil Forum. There is also a lot of undergraduate and graduate students in paleontology from all over the world that will go on Fossil Forum looking for things that pertain to their research. And they're always happy to identify things for you. And if it happens to mesh with what they're looking for, going forward, whether it be for a thesis or that, it's such a helpful community. And I've met a lot of people through there that I, reference a lot and refer to for expertise. Fossil Forum, go. I've had an account there since I was like 16.
Yeah, I've had experience with Fossil Forum, and it is a great site. Like I submitted a specimen, and just it was incredible the feedback and how open people are to reviewing the specimen and giving their expertise. So yeah, I've had a great experience with Fossil Forum, definitely. So it's good to hear that that's something that you recommend, because I found it, used it, thought it was great, but wasn't sure, where it was, on the level of something to recommend in the community. So that's a good resource.
Yeah, totally.
So I do see some questions coming in. We'll get to those in a second here. I do have one question that I feel like I have to ask. Jurassic Park or Land Before Time?
Land Before Time. I love Land Before Time so much. I was laughing with a friend of mine because Land Before Time technically I think is still going. It went on very well into like the mid 2000s. They were still, releasing in the franchise. What I remember is the very traumatic 90s movies. And so I was like, my friend just had a baby and I was like, your child is never going to know the pain of watching, spoiler alert, Littlefoot's mother. I love Jurassic Park. I do. And I watch it in a way that I remove myself really from, that's not right. I do not like Jurassic World. I love Jurassic Park. I do not care for Jurassic World.
I guess so speaking kind of on that too, is there any movie that you've seen about dinosaurs that you had like that would give you like your worst like award to like that movie? Was there anyone that really stuck out that was like, these dinosaurs are from different time periods, or they're acting in ways that wouldn't be that would like, is there anything that you've seen that's like just really bad as far as dinosaur movies go?
I mean, I am the biggest like adversary to the Jurassic World franchise. There's a lot, especially so for viewers. I am a mosasaur expert, so marine reptiles, specifically mosasaurs, and the travesty of that mosasaurus that is in the Jurassic World franchise is horrible, and for some reason has osteoderms, so like armored plating, like you would find on a crocodile or an alligator on a mosasaur. Don't like that. There is a very, when you describe like the worst, like what do you think is like the worst, what you can think of for dinosaur movies? I think of a very specific scene in Prehistoric Plant from like the Apple TV series. It's very well animated. There's great. I know a lot of people that worked on the show. The scene where the Triceratops go into an underground tunnel system to lick salt off of clay walls haunts my dreams. It is not based in anything. Elephants do that, but that is probably like the worst. I don't know. Maybe there's some proprietary like gonna come out in a couple years, like bam, information, but I've never met a single paleontologist that likes that scene or has any idea where that scene came from.
I do. I just thought of one other question.
Yeah.
Which it's sort of related to paleontology. So when I was in college getting my undergraduate degree, I had a professor, shout out to Larry Jones, who was probably the best professor at my college. He told us about a paper that he wrote where we were talking about different fluvial geomorphology and how, rivers will change over time. And he told us that he wrote a paper that he termed a phrase called dinovulsion, which would be that the dinosaurs, if they, because some of them are fairly large, if they were walking in certain, packs or groups or herds or whatever you want to call them, could affect the flow then of a river, where the river could sort of, avulse or whatever. From dinosaurs. So is that something that you then would give credit to for what you've seen?
I actually would. I would, because we do have, something tantamount to that in modern day when there are large migrations of terrestrial mammals like we see in the, African plains every year. There is treadways that these animals are just following over and over, and they will reshape the land in which water wants to return to the ocean. So when there is a path already made, I don't know specifically like how in depth your professor got, but we do see animals shaping the land in such a way that rivers will follow. So there could be some credit to that actually.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure if you search dinovulsion, you will find his paper.
So we'll take some questions from some of the viewers. It looks like Rookie Gold Prospector. He was curious what you think about the Boneyard, Alaska, and all the mammoths they found.
Yes, mammoths are cool. They have a great global presence. But specifically North American mammoths rock my world. I love them. Boneyard and bonebed are very interesting words. In Alaska, what he's referring to, the boneyard, when it comes to ice and preservation thereof for fossils, we've all heard about, no matter what circle you run in, even if you know nothing about fossils or anything, every couple of years they pull something amazing out of the permafrost in Siberia, and they're like, oh, it's a baby mummy mammoth, that type of thing. There's something kind of similar-ish happening in Alaska. I think it's very cool. Part of the thing with Alaska is the conditions there are so harsh that it can be a little complicated to work with. What I know is very base about that site, but I think it is so cool. It's very tragic when you think about the logistics, but mass dyings fascinate me. I think that's really gnarly.
So is that kind of similar then? Because I've heard in, I guess, like you mentioned Siberia, like Russia, that because of the climate changing and it's getting warmer, that some of the permafrost is melting. I heard, this was like years ago, but I thought I had heard that because ivory is illegal, that they were
Yes.
actually getting like mammoth tusks to then sell as
Yeah.
ivory. Is that true?
That is 100% true. Yes. That is a actual big problem because it does bypass all of the international excavation and exportation laws. Mammoth ivory is a huge thing. I actually just saw a concert on Sunday here in Texas. And for some reason at the huge, it was an outdoor venue, they had a like rock, you know, tumble and grab, fill your bag type thing. And there was like mammoth tusk on there was like one of the things that you could potentially scoop and put it in your bag. And I'm like, yep,
Huh.
that checks.
Wow.
Yep. Ooh, have I seen the new
Yeah,
site?
so Mike
Yeah.
says, I think you mentioned this earlier, that there's a new track site in Texas that was found.
Yes. Yes. So there is a formation of rock called the Glen Rose limestone, and it is perhaps, you know, one of the most famous track bearing formations in the world. They're so cool. Basically, anywhere you find Glen Rose limestone, you find these tracks, which is really cool. The new trackway is near the Glen Rose Dinosaur State Park. So, about 125 years ago, a bunch of settlers found a dry creek bed that was chock full of dinosaur tracks. And some unique dinosaurs have actually been identified from those tracks there in Glen Rose, Texas. Each year, unfortunately, as Texas's droughts get progressively worse, more of that riverbed recedes. And then we also have flash floods every, rainy season because we go through such devastating droughts. And they will move all of the gravel, and suddenly you'll find like 250 more dinosaur
Cool.
tracks. I
That's
actually worked
cool.
as, the paleontologist at a similar site with Glen Rose limestone about an hour away from me. And the same thing happened. There's a little museum. They have 350 dinosaur tracks. And then a couple of years ago, there was a drought and then flash flood. And now there is a state park there because they found 250 more dinosaur tracks on
Wow.
the other side of the river.
That's
So
cool.
Texas, every year, it's like, ooh, when are we going to drop the new dinosaur tracks?
I was born in Texas. I lived there till I was 8 or 9, and I didn't know that there was this amount of fossil discovery until I started following you. And I'm like, holy crap, like that's incredible. Like
Everywhere.
I have family down there, and I'm just like, wow, this is a lot. There's so many places I want to start just exploring just from following your content and stuff. So it's good stuff. We've got let's see, Joe here wants to know if you've discovered anything unexplainable, a new species, anything new that we never knew existed.
Yes, I'm working on potentially 2 new species of marine reptile. The plesiosaur is definitely something that I have no reference for. as far as I know right now, at least for the time period, trying to figure that out. And the mosasaur that I'm working on is showing some weird presentation that should not be there. So we're either looking at a pathological individual, so an animal that has some sort of disease, or maybe congenital malformation, perhaps it had dwarfism, something like that, because what is there in the rock that we've been uncovering is not vibing with what is documented. So working on potentially new species. Again, how lucky am I? The first paper that I'm leading, there's just all of these new things, which does make it a little bit more intimidating.
And how many years have you been working on this research?
So for this site, we actually just started this year. So luckily, right now we're working on the skull of the mosasaur, and that was a very heavy fossil jacket to get out. And the plesiosaur is still in storage because it's 1,500 pounds.
Wow.
Wow.
They had to move it with a forklift.
So yeah. I have a few questions. So thinking back to Texas, if you could, I don't know, pick maybe 2 or 3 or even just one, what are the best places to collect in Texas for fossils?
Best places to collect in Texas. Okay, so Texas is a little complicated. Our state is primarily privately owned, which is not exactly the norm for states, just because Texas has been around for so long, owned by 6 different countries, all of that. So there's a lot of families that have land here that is excessively large and only theirs. So first off, I always say, look at Rocked, look at your land maps, figure out if you're going on private property. There are areas that I can tell you that are great. Post Oak Creek is the best place in the state that is accessible to the public to find shark teeth of all different genera. They're all over the place. You can stick your hand in that water, pull it out, get 20 shark teeth. It's crazy. That is the best place for shark teeth. For vertebrate fossils, there is no public place other than the Ladonia Fossil Park that you can take vertebrate fossils in Texas. Sadly, tragically, and I did try to fight it, but I am just a paleontologist. I am not the government. The state has made a dam, and Ladonia is going to be flooded / destroyed. The river / people are just not going to be there as soon, basically, as the drought is over, because Dallas needs water. So Ladonia Fossil Park, if you're in the area, do it now. It's not going to be there in 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, unfortunately. But Post Oak Creek, always going to be there. It's protected. Technically, so is Ladonia, but that's what I have to comment on that.
Well, those are those. I mean, get there in the next 2 years, guys. So you like to prepare fossils, and I'm sure that it's a lot of steps. Is there any way that you could kind of summarize just thinking about a basic fossil, like how you would prepare it?
Yeah, so fossil preparation is a lot of fun. There are a couple different methods. If the sediment is very soft, you can do it all by manual prep. So basically just sitting there with your dental picks and your brushes and going in all the little nooks and crannies and getting all of that out. For hard rocks, so we're talking about like Morrison Formation, extremely hard sandstones and limestones and evil things. I use an air scribe, which is basically like a little kind of a cross between a mini jackhammer and a jeweler's like inscriber type tool. And it's just like a little mini drill, and getting the things off of that. It's a slow process, but you're moving the matrix around. We use acids. Acid prep is a thing. If The sediment is, very sandy, very silty, but still dense. So you can just pop it in a big old bucket and throw some at home you can do it with vinegar. At the museum we use gnarly chemicals that I'm not even sure what they are half the time, but that's one way you can prep. The most common thing, though, when you see like the prep videos on TikTok and YouTube, they're using those little pens. That's an air scribe, and it is loud. It is loud. You are using a mini drill, so you've got to do ear protection. But what I do is I'm given some sort of specimen by a private individual or whichever museum that I'm working at, or even I find it myself. I evaluate what sort of rock I'm working with. I like to say that I know the exact minimum about rocks that I need to know. I am a biological paleontologist. So I have I know geology, but very you will have to strong arm me to take, volcanology would be cool, but like structural geology, no, thank you. So I figure out what kind of rock that I'm working with. If it's something where I can just throw like some vinegar or acid on it and it eats away stuff for me, that's great. There's a lot of gluing in fossil prep because things crack, things break. You got to put them back together. Sometimes I'm just handed a big old bag of stuff and it will say tooth on it. And it's like 5 million pieces. And I have to sit there and it can take months where I'm just, okay, where's this little piece? And if I can't find, go ahead.
I was going to say, I've noticed too that it, from the dinosaur digs that I've done in Montana, it seems like the sagebrush really loves to find where the fossils are. And I found a Triceratops horn and it was right under a sagebrush and it came out in pieces because that bush, it must be, I'm guessing because the fossil has some kind of a pathway for water that the roots then just love to just go right through and they don't care.
Yes. In, quick abridged bio terms, your bones are wet at all times. When you are alive, your bones are wet. And so these, capillaries and these, basically we have these tubular pathways where bone marrow is produced, all of that. Those are moist always. Fossils, we're looking at rock. We're looking at, based on where they are in the mineralization process, just dried out. These structures are still there. They're dried out. Bone takes in moisture. And what loves moisture? Roots. So you will always find roots dug into bones because that is a surefire way to have moisture collected in a enclosed space for a plant because all that moisture is going into the fossil. So plants love fossils. Roots are extremely difficult to get out when prepping a fossil. You have to do it by hand with tweezers, glue on hand. Pull slowly. Oh, that's not going to go. Okay, glue. Try to pull. So yeah, sage is evil. Don't like sagebrush. It's not my favorite.
Just thinking about just the time, the patience you must have. I mean, I couldn't do it. I'm just impressed that you could, 500 pieces and spend, months putting that together. I mean, although that incredibly rewarding, you've got some incredible patience.
Yeah.
I have another question. So thinking about what has been your experience as a female paleontologist and in regards, and if you want to be frank, I would love to just hear positive, negative, what have you experienced being a female in the field?
Yeah, so that is a great question. And it's something that I get asked a lot. As someone who has a social media presence, it's a lot of the times I get from teenage girls, from, moms of girls that love fossils and paleontology and dinosaurs. And they're like, what do we do? Luckily now there is a lot of people to look up to in paleontology that are women or, you know, non-binary presenting people in the field. And that is great. There was definitely a time I have hit a pretty good spot of starting my career where there's a lot more women in the field. 10 years ago, it was still a huge struggle. And not to say that it isn't. Frankly, I have unfortunately encountered some sexism, and that really is from what we call the old guard. And it's the people that have been, you know, in the field for a very long time. There are some paleontologists that have been involved since the 70s, you know, that are men that I know, amazing people, the biggest advocates. They do not care. Not to say they don't care about you, but really they don't care about you in a personal level. As long as you are helping the science, they're like, great, do whatever you want. You're fantastic. And those are great people. But kind of the idea that if a woman is going to be a paleontologist, she is going to be a museum curator. There is some of that still there. But women in the field coming out, doing great. Go. It's more now, unfortunately, an ageism thing that it is hit because we have hit a place in, you know, where we are as a society. There are more opportunities for young people to be involved on the ground floor as citizen scientists going on digs, and sometimes that can translate over to college credit. So you get a full-blown like degree paleontologist at 21, and no one's going to want to give them a chance on that. That's kind of the situation. Women are coming up in paleontology and as geosciences scientists in general, which is great. But it is unfortunately still a struggle. I do think that probably, you know, in my lifetime, I'm going to see, you know, a great shift in the voices of geoscience. It's already happening, which is
that's encouraging. That's good to hear. That's good to hear. So let's get well, I do see there's some more questions. We'll come back to your questions. Let's get into the IDs. Let's look at some IDs here, and we'll just go through each slide. Mike, I know you're watching. I'll let you go ahead and start.
Yes. So this first little friend on the left, this is an ammonite. So that was a type of cephalopod. So we would think our squids and our octopus type friends. This had a shell. It was great. You see them in media all the time. They're the spiral shell squids. They're great. They're awesome. I love them.
Is Nautilus, is that like the modern version of it?
Yes, a Nautilus is the like the modern, you know, almost unchanged version of an ammonite. And this specific species right here is, if I can remember how to pronounce it correctly, Eopachydiascus. I could not. They get very boiled down, very specific. An amazing thing about ammonites as fossils is you always hope to find them when you're on a site because they are index fossils, which means that we can use them to help identify where our site is in time. We do not have the ability in like dinosaur paleontology and, you know, marine reptile paleontology or the Mesozoic, where all of our cool famous friends are hanging out. And before, carbon dating is not a thing for them. Carbon does not have long enough half-life to be able to even remotely get to the ages that we need to start dating those types of fossils. But ammonites were very widespread, but also lived in very specific locales and time periods. Some species of ammonites were around for only, say, 2 million years. So you have a very close snapshot of where you are in time. Very, very lucky on my site is that one of the other paleontologists found an ammonite actually touching one of the plesiosaur elements. So we got like a real good idea of where we are since we don't have an ash layer. So ammonites, fantastic. Duck Creek is very well known in Texas for having ammonites and echinoids. This one is gorgeous. They're usually all kind of meh, crumply, I guess, kind of when you look at limestones, the just acidity of rainwater getting all those crevices. These markings on this ammonite are actually how it would have looked in life. These structures are kind of how it was chilling out. So Eopachytiscus.
So so I heard that as far as like ammonites go, you can tell the species by like the pattern of the sutures. Is that
Yes.
true?
It is absolutely 100% true.
Okay.
Sutures and how they are, so how the animal is connected. They do like have the shells have segments. You kind of think of them like a worm. When it's all, you can tell different species of worms apart by the number of segmentations on their body. It's the same. Okay, so this ammonite has, these 6 sutures. Okay, that means it's at least in this family. Oh, these sutures are this thick and are this wiggly, which means it's this species. Ammonites are literally fantastic for learning about the environment of the paleo Earth. So I love ammonites.
Yay. Cool. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So we have the next one here this was submitted by Mary Lee. I'm not sure if Mary Lee is watching tonight, but I know that if she's not, she will watch later. So she wants to know, is this a fossil?
This is a layered type of question. Looking at it, I mean, what I'm saying, it's not a fossil. This is a nodule. And it could also be something like a concretion. So just a very tightly compacted, like mineral type formation that happened quite frequently in geology. What I'm seeing here, though, if this were, say, in England, if I had found this on the Jurassic close, I would instantly take a chisel to it, because what I like to say about concretions and ooids, but again, I like to know the minimum about geology that I need to. I like to call concretions and these nodules the pearls of the geology world. Pearls, in our oyster friends, starts as a tiny little speck of dust or a grain of sand, and the pearl, as we know it, forms around it as this kind of encasing protective measure. That can happen with concretions and nodules, that there is something in the center a lot of times that it forms around. Sometimes it can be a speck of dust, or at the site I worked at in Montana, it was always dinosaur bones encased in iron. So this, while it's not a fossil from what I can see, but it is something that you could crack open, and it could be 5 billion different things. It could also be a geode, perhaps. I don't know, but if
so maybe your recommendation is to maybe
crack it open. Yeah,
all right.
Crack it open. I'm not seeing fossil, but
I would say as a geologist, that does look like a concretion.
Yeah, that was her other. When she commented, it was either in private message or whatever. But that was her other thought, was it was a concretion.
Yeah, I will say I'm not in paleontology, but we did have people bring in things that they were certain were dinosaur pieces. We had the one that sticks out to me is we had someone in Montana bring us some really fine, like druzy calcite, and they told us it was dinosaur skin. And when we told them no, they told us we were wrong. So I'm sure you've gotten that quite a bit too.
Yes. I get dinosaur eggs all the time, and it's always competitions. And I feel like the villain because it's always children. And a big thing that I do is I am a children's like paleo educator. So I'm talking to like at least like 300 kids a week. And it's always, I found a dinosaur egg, and I always have to say, no, friend, you didn't. I always say it's a very cool rock, and you should get an adult to crack it open because it could be a geode, but there's only 7 places in the world you can find dinosaur eggs and nests, and Texas is not one of them.
One of them, yeah.
This one was awesome. Okay, so the first 2, I know what these are. The last one, the third one, the rightmost, I'm going to come out and say I'm not a fish person. I have no idea what that is. Because fish, there are so many of them. My friend's site, it was she had a 30 by 40 meter area, and they discovered 15 new species of fish. Because fish die all at the same time a lot of the time in very
Mm-hmm.
protected places. I do know that these first two images, these are gar. These are gar. Gar as a type of fish have changed very little over millions and millions of years. They have very special scales. And you can see a lot of that presentation right there. They also have very pointy snoots, very indicative of certain types of fish. Is the tail flare and very severe snout areas. But so those first two are that's gar. The last one is just a fish. I can say that
Okay.
is a fish. It's possible. But fish, really, it comes down to someone in paleontology that works with fish. I can say fish.
Yeah,
Do they have a
there
special
was
name? Do they like someone who specializes with fish and paleontology?
No, that oddly enough doesn't.
Okay.
Because, people who study eggs are called oologists. They
Mhm.
have their own special name. But people that study fish, I'm a marine paleontologist, so they fall under that. But
Mhm.
any more specific than that,
No.
I haven't
Okay.
heard. But I do know people that specialize in fish.
Oh, I was going to say too on that. Mike Pales did comment and say, um, Vinctifer is the genus
Is
of this early Cretaceous fish.
That is fascinating. I'm going to file that away. I love it when people can tell fish apart. If a mosasaur didn't eat it, I know very little about the fish. I can tell you fish. And oddly enough, I can tell you like how mature that fish was based on the density of the bones, but I could not tell you what fish it was. Okay.
So
So you
these
and I,
couple
Ben, were
here.
talking about this first one. So this is an incredible type of fossil, and it stumped me for a while because the color is very similar to the kind of tooth decay color that we see in mammals.
Mhm.
Even like if your dog hasn't gotten their teeth cleaned in a bit, you will start seeing this very like deepy brown mustardy type coloration um, of the dentine in their teeth. But this is a fossil. This, I think, is a stromatolite. That's what the rings of this look like. And a stromatolite, this is fossilized cyanobacterium. So this is fossilized bacterial mounds. Bacteria stromatolites are the oldest animals that we have record of. Going back over 4 billion years is the first stromatolite fossil that we find. And that is crazy. These things were extremophiles, which means that the Earth didn't have all of the cool, fun things we love about Earth, namely, breathable air, water, or land. And these things were just thriving. They
Nice.
were thick mats, basically fuzzy carpet full of these, acid breathing, spitting out bacterium. And they still fossilize because they did have cellular structures. They are single cell organisms. So they have cells and the
Right.
ability to fossilize. And that to me looks like a stromatolite that has been, I don't know, like metamorphosed, maybe.
Yeah.
It's got
Yeah.
some
Yeah, and I will say too, anyone in Minnesota, we've got the Mary Ellen Jasper, which is like Jasper stromatolites, which I know those are like very old too. I do want to back up one quick second here. Mike says Rhyacolapis. Rhyacolapis is the second fish, is what he thinks it is. He's not sure of the
interesting.
spelling. So I wanted to put that up before we go off of that. And
That
then
is
the one on the right
Yes,
on
so
this.
that looks like a conglomerate of echinoids. So basically looking at the same family as sea urchins and our fun
Yeah.
little like starfish type
Mhm.
friends. Um, what we have there these circular structures, those nodule type looking things. I can see bumps and I can see kind of crevices, these concave, type presentation there in the middle. That is kind of where more of the squishy bit of the animal would be, and the structure, kind of this more, thick, dense rim, is where we're starting to see spikes and fun things like that coming out. That's what those dots are. And this would be something that would be a fun prep project. A lot of the time it wouldn't get them fully free of this rock, but I would throw it in some vinegar for a couple days, and it might remove some of the very thin sediment, and you could see more of the animals, of the fossil. Yeah. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, and you might want to be careful with that too. I know in some of the locations in Michigan, people have tried to do, I know there's chain coral and Petoskey stones, and some people have tried to put Petoskey stones in vinegar, which are, calcium carbonate. And some people say to do it for 15 minutes, and some people have come back and put them in for a day, and there's nothing left. So I will say putting anything into an acid, check it a lot so that it doesn't disappear on you.
Oh, yep. All right. These are my bread and butter. All right. Ladonia. Man, I'm going to miss you, Ladonia Fossil Park. Humerus. We're looking at some nice leggy army bits. A very interesting thing about vertebrate fossils is that one thing that changes depending on kind of the environment that the animal, like its niche, whether it be terrestrial or semi-aquatic, aquatic, fully, the humerus and the femur, those things will flatten out and get curvy. So they are a little bit difficult to be like, is that a humerus? That is a humerus. I would love to get my face real close to that to be able to tell you of what. Old, definitely. We're looking at that. For the North Sulphur River, where, Ladonia is on the North Sulphur River, it has an incredible black silt. So it brings that all into the fossil, into that preservation, and that coloring is very famous for the area. I have a Tylosaurus prorigor atlas vert that is that same color, a little blacker, but this also could be because there's a light shining on it. But yes, we're looking at a humerus. And then this next one fascinates me. I love spines. I love spines. Verts are amazing, and I love them. So this is a presentation of not articulated, but associated vert. So this is the spine of some. Without a scale bar, it was kind of hard to boil down, if I'm honest, because I don't know a lot of animals. This is an adult of whatever it is. This is an adult. I know that this bone structure, at least what is presenting, does not look like it has, any give to it, not super growing, all of that. But this part of the spine, oh man, it's gorgeous.
So when you say vert, you mean like vertebrae?
Vertebrae, yes.
Spine.
Yes. Spinal elements.
Yeah.
Those
You could
bumps
see,
on your back.
Yeah, you can definitely see the yeah. I mean, when you said that immediately, I could totally see it. I'm just thinking about looking at the spines. I'm a nurse and I'm looking at x-rays. Right. I can totally see it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So quick question. I believe these people that submitted, Denise and Chris, they are in Texas. Could they reach out to you later to maybe, if in
I would love that.
Okay, perfect.
Because Tarrant
County, yeah.
You find dinosaurs. You do.
Nice.
You find dinosaurs there. And this, looking at that, I was immediately intrigued.
Tarrant County is Dallas, right? Dallas area?
Yes.
Yes. Fort Worth?
Fort Worth.
Dallas.
To the the West.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I
I'll
guess
pass that information on so they can reach out.
yeah. So going with that too, I guess we haven't mentioned this yet, but as far as social media goes,
Yeah.
where are you, and I guess what's like your usernames?
So everything is BK Bones Dinos. And that's I'm most active on Instagram. I'm on Instagram every day. So that's a great place to DM me. My website is bkbones.com. I have several emails there that you can send if you like. I talk at elementary schools and libraries, even if no matter where you are in the world, I do a lot of virtual stuff. That and those emails, send any question that you have about paleo. I do stuff on TikTok and I do have a Facebook page. But Instagram is the place to find me. And people, again, every day send me stuff to identify. And I also get a lot of early career paleontologists or people wanting to pursue paleontology that ask me. I've done several interviews with high school students for what I want to be when I grow up. And so there's at some point, if I make it big, there's going to be a lot of awkward film of me going, I started paleontology when I was 3 years old. With a list of prompts. Okay. I went to school here. Okay. All right. I don't know.
When we get through these, I would love for you to talk more about the service that you offer, going to,
Yeah.
Yes.
your presentations and stuff. We'll definitely get into that for sure.
Awesome. Okay. This one, gotta say, I'm stumped. I don't know. This
Okay.
looks more like a rock type thing than something that I would deal with. It does look weird. It does look weird. When things get very, very niche, that's kind of where, if it's not my niche, where I tap out.
Okay.
So I
That's
never
fair.
want to be like, fossil identification is again something that I do, and museums will reach out to me. What I'm lucky enough is that I have a very extensive, support and professional like network that if I don't know what something is, I can show somebody else. And if this person, wants more specific identification that they can't get on Fossil Forum or something like that, they're free to reach out to me on Instagram and I can find someone to tell them mayhaps what it is. But I never want to lie, make myself out to be something I am not. I have no idea what that is.
All right. That's fair.
All
And
right.
then on the right,
Yes. So structurally, this one is fun. To me, this looks like, what's a way to explain this? Perhaps a cast or an impression that was left by a fossil. What we see a lot is that over time, as rock is moved through tectonics and erosion, you have the river carving it out and throwing it every which way, glaciers, all of that. A fossil that is surrounded by this matrix will shape the rock around it. And prep, that's what it is. You're removing the matrix around it to get to the fossil.
Mm-hmm.
They will often come out in huge chunks and leave impressions and will be formed in that way. You will see a lot of fish where there is no actual like skeletal elements. It is just an impression. We've all seen those, like one of the pterosaurs, like a small type pterodactyl relative, that it's just looks like it's smushed. There is no bone there. It's an impression. If you've ever rolled a ball of Play-Doh and you've taken your finger and you put it in there and you've taken it out and the impression is left and you just see your thumbprint in there, but obviously your thumb isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same kind of thing. There could have been a fossil there that caused that shape and left this impression. It could have been part of a bigger thing. But I can't get any more specific than that. South Carolina, though, great place for fossils.
Nice.
Yeah, I will say I actually had an interesting discussion in Montana. I was actually talking with Tom Harmon, which anyone that does anything with Montana agates probably knows the name Tom Harmon. He's written so many books about Montana agates. We had a discussion with someone that was talking about limb casts versus petrified wood. I think it kind of relates to fossils then, where like petrified wood, the actual wood is replaced by minerals, whereas a limb cast is the whole or the mold left by the tree or the limb or whatever, and then the agate fills that hole. So I guess that's kind of what you're saying here, is that like a fossil, it's replaced and turns to like stone, and then this is, you know, sort of the hole that was left.
Possibly tusk. I don't see tusk for this question. I don't see tusk personally. I haven't worked extensively with tusk, but I've handled enough like in collections that I don't believe that is tusk. More Sherman. Sherman, so famous for teeth. Teeth. Yay. Teeth. Teeth. Again with fish, and a great reminder that sharks are fish. Great. They have so many subspecies. There's been experiments that were done in the United States and Japan in the late 70s, and it happens naturally, which is awesome. The creation of endemic animals, which means that animals that only live in one very specific place and in a very specific way. You can take the same kind of fish and put it in a pond that has a pH level of this, and then the same original fish and put it in a different pond 5 feet away with a different pH level, and they will turn into completely different fish, and their teeth will turn into completely different shapes, even though 20 years ago they were the same fish.
Wow.
So when it comes to fish, I can say teeth. If it's a goblin shark, they have very like long, teeth, and I can
Kind of
say
pointy.
goblin shark. But can I say, like goblin shark specialis, imperatus, all these things? That is not my wheelhouse. I can with mosasaurs. I can tell you the like all of that of their teeth, but fish, some like, genera of sharks have like 15 members, and that is far too many in my personal opinion. Teeth.
And then the one on the right is actually what I found on Sunday. I was out in Montana, and this was in a tributary of a creek. There's probably 5 feet of sediment on top of it, and I dug this thing out. So I'm assuming it's an Ice Age-ish fossil.
Yep, this is a mammalian bone. It looks bovid, so we're probably looking at bison. The Ice Age in Montana. Montana really is a hotspot for fossils of all kinds. They have some of the oldest stromatolites. They're in East Glacier, rocking it, looking really pretty. Then we get tons of dinosaurs, and then we get so many things from the Ice Age. And yes, this bovid, for sure. More of a long bone. This isn't a rib. This is an army leggy bit.
Great.
And then I didn't get a chance to submit mine, so I sent you pictures to look at. So let me make sure I put this in the light here.
Probably
Just so
pulled that up. Let's see.
probably
Got some
too,
good shell action right there. Yeah.
And where's that
So
from?
neat.
This is from Alpena, Michigan.
That is so cool. That is so awesome.
And did you have
Is it like a coral?
I was going to say I'd even lean towards coral now that I see it more in kind of like the 3D. Yeah, I'd say some sort of coral, actually. That structure, moving it around. Yeah, that's really cool. That's a big old chunk of coral. That's neat. I love fossils. Yeah, that's really cool.
All right. So you're just any kind of like idea of like any kind of coral, or just
That if it doesn't have a spine, I'm out.
Okay.
That's really, I'm a vertebrate paleontologist. So I've got skeletons living rent free in my head. But
I love
coral, they're great. They are animals, but they do not have spine. If you put a bug in front of me, any sort of insect, someone brought me some beautiful amber and they're like, can you identify this bug in it? And it was like deer in the headlights. I was like, I can give you the number of someone who can tell you what this is.
You're like, it's a bug.
And I'm like, it is a bug.
Yeah.
Well, that was really fun. That was really fun. Like, I really appreciate you taking the time to look at each and one of those specimens. And I mean, that was so very kind of you. And it was fun. I thank you so much.
Yeah, I had a blast.
We go through some of the other questions that we went back to real quick. Let's see, was there
I guess while you're looking at that, I'm going to quick show you my Montana dig here. Going through, this was a vertebrae pieces.
That is.
There's me digging it out. This was a vertebrae piece. Some hoodoos. This was a rib bone.
Yeah.
And then this was what I wanted to show you. This was zoom in here a little bit. This was the T-Rex jawbone. You can see the full kind of shape of it. And then there's a couple teeth you can see that are black. And that was a close-up view.
Who has that? Which is a good question. Is a private individual have that?
Yes, yes. It's a private land. So the landowners have that.
That would be cool to know, to just let them know that that has a pathology on it. That friend is diseased.
Oh, so it's a diseased jawbone is what you're saying?
Yep. Unless there's some really bizarre weathering, there seems to be on towards the posterior, like under, there seems to be some pitting that has healed. Yeah.
That is so awesome that you can look at that and just know that, like, that is just so badass. I love that.
It happened a lot in dinosaurs. I, again, work most with marine reptiles, but when I do work with dinosaurs, I do diseases, paleopathology, specifically arthritis and septic infections.
Wow.
So,
I will say, anyone that is looking for a museum to go to, the Field Museum in Chicago is like my favorite place, and it's really cool to learn about Sue the T-Rex, because they have where they talk about like the diseases, and like this thing shows that it was like
she had a hard life.
Yeah, like this was an injury that healed, and it's the amount of information you can tell from a bone about the life that an animal went through is just, it's insane.
We've got a question here from Mike.
With Mammoth Paleontologist. I haven't worked with Dr. Fisher. I have friends who have, but I would love to. It would be fantastic. Since I am semi-removed from mammals, I am, without like getting too much into detail, going to be working in like a locality that does have like more mammals, specifically mammoths. So I'm sure paths will cross, but I personally have not. I hear that he's a wealth of knowledge on mammoths, and everyone that I know that likes Cenozoic, and we're getting down to the mammal nitty gritty, has read all of his stuff.
And then the crystal collector joined us. Thanks for joining us, Brian. He's got a question wanting to know, is there any place in the USA you can find decent sized tusk, like a place open to the public?
Place open to the public? No. I can actually jump into this. So with mammals, when it is like an established, site for paleo, we run into something very interesting because we think of these behemoths, these mammoths, these giant sloths as creatures that are so far removed from us and our daily things like going on TikTok and driving cars. Modern humans did interact with these animals, specifically with mammoths. When there is a mammoth found and a paleo team goes there to review it, it does not matter what religion you are or what belief system you are. Everybody gets around and they say a quick whisper to the wind, please no arrowheads. Because if you find an arrowhead at a fossilized mammal site, it is automatically considered a national site of human interest and given to archaeologists. So a lot of places that have had mammoths or very important finds from mammals, if they are not on private land, have been taken by into the care of the government or a body such as a museum or university, because humans always get priority over paleo. Always. Mammal paleontologists, kind of some tea, guys. Mammal paleontologists and archaeologists do not get along. I am a reptile paleontologist. I have close friends that are archaeologists, and we laugh about it. But no, mammal paleontologists, because we are so close in time to mammoths, and the fact that mammoth tusk is so valuable, people will pay a pretty penny. I just saw a TikTok that somebody got a table made out of a huge mammoth tusk. It was wild.
Wow.
But they're like, ooh, my table instead of oak, it's mammoth tusk. There's not really a place. The Brazos River here in Texas, it is open to the public, and people do find big old chunks of tusk and things like that. But that is a very specific locale that is, the Brazos is long. The Brazos River is the only place I know, but a lot of parts of it, public, private land, private land, public, private. Getting to a legal place in which to collect, even if you can see it from the highway, is a fun thing to do.
So if somebody, private land off that river and they got, permission, that may be somewhere they could.
Yep, the Brazos. If someone's offering come prospect on my land or whatever on the Brazos, if you want to find, tusk in especially this, kind of area of North America, Brazos River, Texas.
Good. It looks like Linda wanted to look at the pictures. She said she wanted to go back and look at the last two pictures and talk about the one on the left. I'm not sure what the last two pictures were. Was that the one where we had...
It's to Ben's bone. Those teeth.
Oh, the teeth. Okay. Linda, what was your question regarding the teeth? If you would like to ask us here.
It's from a two-toed animal. Some say...
Oh, I'll pull that up for you.
Yeah. I've worked with a lot of... So that would be from a mammal. It is a tooth. I would not say horse, personally.
You were saying fish?
No, it's not a fish. That's definitely a mammal.
Okay.
Horses have terrifying, horrible teeth. And you would know if it was a horse. Horses, even modern horses, have terrible incisors that look a lot like a dog's.
So Jackie added some more information to this and says it was found in a post creek with all the shark teeth.
Oh yeah. Okay, that area that actually helps a lot. It could be a camel. So
your nemesis.
My followers did ask me on Instagram to kind of drop a little bit of this about myself, I made a poll. Like I said earlier, I'm becoming known as the marine paleontologist that hates camels, which is fair. I hate camelids. I do. I think they are gross and awful creatures. When you're a vertebrate paleontologist, you take something called comparative anatomy, and it's just like when you take anatomy in high school in biology, the skeleton, they have all the same bones as we do, but they just look different. Theirs are too long, their knees are gross, and their ankle is weird. Honestly, I don't know why, and this is the lore drop. I don't know why I don't like camels. Because the first big significant paleo find that I had was the day that I graduated high school. I was 19 and I found a complete camel long bone. It's beautiful. It's one of my prized possessions. And I don't know, at some point between 19 and almost 29, a switch has been flipped in my head where I am repulsed by the sight and idea of camels. I think it's because as animals go on, the last North American camel type, like camelops, went extinct 13,000 years ago. And at the Waco Mammoth site, there are camels there. I just made a TikTok about my deep dislike of that camel. I was just trying to enjoy the mammoths. But camels, those camels didn't have humps. And I don't like that. They had weird faces. They didn't look like camels, but they were camels, and their toes were gross. I just really don't like camels. And I'm very opinionated about them, and they haven't done anything to me. I was never bitten by a camel. I just don't like them.
Oh, that's funny.
But yeah, a mammal too could be a camel. It's not a horse, at least.
I think we've got our last question here. What is your favorite fossil find, Bethany? Which is one I was going to ask you as well.
Favorite, what is to find, or my favorite, I love finding mosasaur material because it's just great. I like finding ammonites. That's also very cool. The first fossil, and it's no longer my favorite to find, but I did bring this down. The first fossil that I was obsessed with finding were these guys. They're called devil's toenails.
That is big. I've seen small ones in Wyoming.
It's not even the biggest one that I have. That one actually is on loan to a teacher friend of mine because, school just started. So she has it and it's bigger. But yeah, it's giant. It's like bigger than, my cheek area. So I would always go out and find these because they're everywhere. And I love them. But my favorite to find now is microfossils. I have an uncanny ability to find very, very small fossils. And micro, I mean like they can be just, the size of a fleck of paint. I love finding microfossils. And that's neat. I did bring one thing though, that I actually made myself. I cast this by hand, and that is this. This is the dentary. So we're looking at our lower jaw bits of a Nanotyrannus that I got the mold of the jaw and put in this nice resin plasticky material. So it has the nice sockets for the teeth, and then the teeth itself, and it usually sits on my wall, but I thought that's part of job as a preparator as well, is to make molds of the fossils so you can get in there and stare at it without hurting the fossil.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So while you're the spotlight, tell us about BK Bones. Tell us about what you have created with your own business and give us the deets.
Yeah. So, swig some water real quick.
I know we have been like grilling you. Like I was just
No
looking at the
worries.
time. I think you just keep talking and going, and I'm like, oh, you've got the energy and all
Yeah.
the answers. That we're like trying to pull more out of you.
Yeah, no worries. So BK Bones is my you know, I say I'm kind of like Bill Nye, but with paleontology in a lot of ways. It's like my, brand, like performer type name, and I go around and I teach kiddos, really of any age, about paleontology, the joys thereof, and more just about the ancient world. I go to libraries and give talks about dinosaurs and paleo. I am in a very fortunate position where um, I am like a hard scientist. So I do, research, publish papers. I'm in the lab. I work, for museums, but I also do things like last week, I went to a local library dressed up in dinosaur pajamas and read to some kiddos. So I love doing that. I like making paleontology approachable because I think that, if you don't want to leave your dinosaur phase, you don't have to. And that's kind of what I try to represent. BK Bones is my way of being the fossil person I didn't have growing up, especially as a girl, is that the number of times that people are surprised that it's me when I show up
I love that.
was overwhelming to begin with. And kids always tell me, "Oh, I didn't know you were going to be a girl." I'm like, yeah, I am. So for BK Bones, I have the biggest part. I'm a science communicator. I have like TikTok is mostly for like the older kind of like niche, but my big thing that the bread and butter of what I do is working with kids ages 3 to like 12, talking about dinosaurs. And I do work with high schoolers, and I have given undergraduate lectures, but working with kiddos is BK Bones. And then as under the BK Bones umbrella, as Bethany, people do send me things to prep. If you have any like prep projects that you want advice on, that you want someone to do, eh. But BK Bones is my way to give back, and maybe if I keep even one kid's dream of paleontology from dying, then I have done what I set out to do, of follow my dream and broadcast it in a way that everyone else can do it too.
And I've seen like people have like hired you to like come do like birthday parties, stuff like that, right?
Yes.
Like
Birthday
just
parties.
all kinds of like, it's really interesting, like how you've integrated your brand with educating and making it entertaining and fun.
Yeah, STEM is a huge, and STEAM is a huge thing for today's youth. And I at first, I'd say in the community in which I'm in, it was a little controversial when I started doing birthday parties, because people are like, "Are you renting yourself out like a clown?" And I'm like, "No, what I'm doing is I'm doing the same kind of talk I would give at
Right.
a an elementary school or at a library, but usually for birthday parties, they're for smaller groups. Also do a lot of children with sensory processing disorders, such as autism, that require a little bit more support, that a loud situation such as a library or in an auditorium won't be conducive to where we are, like our friends, what they can handle. So birthday parties are for like younger kids, and also just as a way to reach out more. It's easier sometimes to get your kid to a birthday party than it is to take your kid to the library, because sometimes children are way more motivated to go eat cake dinosaurs than they are to, "No, you can't run right now.
Right.
You need to sit down." Birthday parties, eat cake, run
I think
around.
it's brilliant. I thought when I saw that, I go, "Oh my gosh!" Especially as we at home, we're a science family, we're a science home, like we're science, 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 and I'm like, I had to have that opportunity for a birthday party. I've had 3 kids, from
Yeah.
My oldest is 20 something. I'm like, I would have loved to have that kind of birthday party for my kid. So I when I read that, I'm like, that's a genius idea.
I had science birthday parties, mad science, where they come and they like make slime in front of you. This was like
Yes, we did that too. Mhm.
the early 2000s. Like I'm talking like 2001. There's just pictures of me. I think it's somewhere actually on my Instagram for people that want to see tiny, tiny little Bethany. I have a cake that I'm standing next to, and it has a beaker on it full of mystery liquid, and it says "Happy Birthday, Happy
Oh,
Birthday," like
how
sixth
cool
birthday
is
or something. And I'm
that?
like, my beaker cake. This has always been.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, our shows are usually an hour. I'm so sorry that we went over so
Oh,
long,
no.
but gosh, it's been such a pleasure to
It's
have
been
you.
a blast. I don't think I've
Yes.
actually ever looked at the time. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, you kept going, so I'm like, okay, we're just gonna keep going.
I talk for a living, so
I mean, we've really enjoyed having you on. Ben, is there anything you want to add before we sign off tonight?
No, the one thing I think that we always touch on that I feel like we need to tell people is our next episode.
Yes.
Our next episode 2 weeks from now, Wednesday, September 20th, same time, 9 o'clock Eastern. We are going to have the Miners Girl. If you don't follow her on
Cool.
TikTok, she does a
Yeah.
lot of like exploring old
Mhm.
mines and goes
Yes.
into. She's had
Yeah.
some really cool videos about like talking about like some of the equipment and things that she finds, like just very knowledgeable about mining
Yes.
in general.
Yeah.
Very enthusiastic, is very open with sharing information, which I absolutely love. And, has the philosophy, like, nature belongs to everyone and everyone, deserves an opportunity to learn. So I'm excited to have her on next week, or sorry, 2 weeks. So it will be another great show.
Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Especially thank you to Bethany
Oh,
for
yes. Thank you so much.
your
Yeah,
your
thank you for
time
having
and
me.
your knowledge. This was a lot of fun.
Yes. All right. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Peace out, everyone.
Bye,
Bye, everyone.
everybody.